So welcome everyone to the first meetup we're having this year, 2022. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're having a good time in between all this, but we're all looking forward to better times, hopefully soon. Today we have special things for you, and we're gonna start right away with Oksana. Oksana is gonna start sharing again with us her 5-minute vocabulary section, and today she's having for us the criteria for evaluating user stories. So without waiting a bit longer, Oksana, thank you for being here, and please take it away.
So, hi everyone, Elsa, welcome from my side to the first meetup this year. So today in this 5-minute warm-up session, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about criteria for evaluating user stories. So as usual, I try to use ISTQB glossary. So it is glossary from International Software Testing Qualification Board to find any definitions or any information for this 5-minute session. So if you're interested in testing, in theoretical basic, please have a look into different levels from foundation to expert level. And if you want learn more about criteria for evaluation user story, or especially about agile testing, you can look into foundation extension Agile Tester. So let's start. Why we are actually going to speak today about this topic, because we all know that poor specifications are often the major reason for the project failures. That's why it's really important to start to be at the part of user story creation from the beginning, from the tester perspective. So from the tester perspective, what actually you can do in this process? So first of all, you can detect missing details like missing requirement. It could be also functional or missing non-functional requirements and completed them. You can also ask open-ended questions for the business representative, or also propose ways of testing user stories. So you can use testing quadrats or testing pyramids. So just to discuss with team or propose the way how we can test this user story and which test level, from unit testing until acceptance test. You can also confirm acceptance criteria, and you can or should participate in brainstorming and mind mapping for technique for creating user stories. And one of these techniques I will present you now. So if you evaluate user story, you can use INVEST criteria. So it is acronym that was created already in 2003, but you can still use it. It is really easy and good to use. So the first one, the user story should be described independent from each other. And they should be negotiable and often opportunity for discussion and clarification. So user story should be valuable and have a recognized value for the user. They should be estimable, so the team can understand the features and can estimate the effort that needs to be done to implement this user story. So the user story should be small, so to have a comfortable size, so you can deliver it within one iteration, and the user story should be testable. So it has defined acceptance criteria. So just if you create the user story, or if user story already created, you can just use these INVEST criteria to evaluate if the user story good enough that it could be implemented or tested or untested, or it's need to be done some more detailed information. You can also add some further attributes. So beside to INVEST attribute like completeness, was all available information included, can all features be traced to preceded documents and discussions, or realizable, other requirements meaningful and can be implemented. or some other criteria like achievable? Can the user story be implemented or this iteration, or you need to divide this user story to 2, 3 or more? So it was a short topic, short 5-minute session about criteria for user stories. So thank you very much. And if you have any question or any ideas for the next topic, just feel free to contact me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Oksana. That was, let me just mute someone. Okay, thank you for muting yourself. Thank you, Oksana. That was a quick session, but with lots of information. So before moving to the main topic, that is Nikolay, let me just thank again our sponsors, Sauce and Trendic. Thanks to them, we are able to have the infrastructure we use to run the meetup. Let me mute the person again. And then the person mute themselves. Cool. Yeah, you're a co-host. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Continuing. Thank you for having us as a meetup and sponsor us. Sauce and Trending. We have these Zoom calls. We send track to speakers every now and then. Yeah, we're a team behind this, so it's not only Sauce and Trending, but we have also Severin and Aurelien, who are just volunteers from the community who are helping us. So basically, thank you to all of you for being here. One thing that I want to remind you is that if you have missed the previous talks that we have had in the meetup, you can simply go to continuoustestingmeetup.com. And for example, the last one we did in December, where Andrew Knight, so known as Destination Panda, I think I'm just gonna kick this person out. Cool. So yeah, submit. Yeah. So basically, Andrew did a really cool talk about the screenplay pattern. So you can go there, have a look how he implements that in C# with his open source project. So have a look at that talk. It was really lots of information. There were a lot of really good questions. So have a look. And one more thing before moving to Nikolay's talk, Sauce Labs is doing a webinar soon about like testing and Ionic applications. So Wim is going to be there. He's going to show us a bunch of things that are interesting in this topic. And yeah, I will share the link later in the chat if you're interested. And then, without waiting more, let me introduce you to the famous and great Nikolay Advolodkin. He has been like every single year, right? Like one of the top 30 people to follow in testing. So you have in front of you one of the people, one of the persons who is really advanced in testing topics. So I'm really happy to have you here, and he's going to show you something that is quite interesting, because sometimes when we talk about testing, we're like on one side, or when we talk about development, we're on the other side. And it's not common to see talks that show you both sides. So I'm always a huge testing advocate. So it doesn't matter what tool you use, but please test your application. And Nikolay is going to show you how you can do that. So thank you, Nikolay, for being here. And I'm going to stop sharing so you can share your screen. Thank you.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much, Diego. That was an amazing welcome, and it's nice to hear such great words from one of the Selenium's core contributors. You know, it's like, makes me very humble. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining me. Super excited to share with you all my talk about building and testing a web application together. As Diego talked about, we either talk about development or we talk about testing. What we should be really talking about is both things together, right? So it'll help bridge the gap that still exists in the industry between both of the sides. And so that's what my hope is here today. Let me start sharing my screen. And I have just a quick curiosity for everyone. Can you drop in the chat your role and your preferred programming language? I'm just curious about the audience that's out here right now. Test engineer, JavaScript, we got C#, we got Python, we got Java. Yeah, we got a lot of things from all over. PHP, oh wow, PHP, old school. TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, student. Okay, yeah, so a lot of everything. Rust, wow, amazing. All right, I know zero about the Rust, so Lewis, I hope you're not upset with me. Okay, cool, very cool. Okay, so yeah, I saw a lot of different types of roles. Today we'll be working with React and JavaScript, of course, and so hopefully who's familiar will get more familiar, and who's not will learn some new technologies. And ultimately it's about learning how to test web applications together. So we're going to be working out of this repo right here. Feel free to go to this URL and you can fork it while you're there, and then you'll have the code for yourself, and give it a star while you're there as well. My hope is to populate this repo here with lots of great JavaScript testing code. We're going to be testing a birthday reminder app, and let me actually show you all that app right now. I forgot to pull it up. Let me see. Sorry, it's so slow to load. It is this one. I already published it to prod just so you guys can see the version. We're going to be building this app today. It's relatively simple, but what we will see is that even with simple applications, there's a lot to consider with testing. So it just has a bunch of static data that shows you how many birthdays there are today. You click a clear all button, and then it just clears everything, and that's pretty much it. But again, we have a limited amount of time, and it's important to show how to test something even though it is simple. That's actually the best way to learn how to test it well. If you want to get started, you can follow these instructions as well. You can learn more information about me. Most importantly, this is my dog, Mia. She is the lead software engineer in this house, so she knows more than all of us combined. And let's get started. So let me actually just stop my camera so it doesn't take up the whole view. So give me a second. I hope that's a bit better for you all. So here I am. I got the code all cloned, pulled down. Let me take you guys through the folder structure. Of course, limited amount of time. So in order to save us some time, I prepared a bunch of stuff to limit the amount of installing, to limit the amount of people that are actually going to be falling asleep. So what you'll see here is the repo. The code is in a starter state that looks like this. Okay, of course, if you pull down this repo and then you just navigate to that birthday reminder folder, and then you'll just come to in here and then do an npm install and an npm start. You can see my server is running here. I'm going to refresh. Oh, it's not running anymore. So you'll do an npm start after you npm install everything. And then you'll get our application that's starting in this state right here. I'm actually just going to refresh here. It opened up on a different screen. That is the starter state, and that is the code that you will pull down. There are a few things that are ready here, again, for faster presentation purposes. And one of those things that is ready is the CSS. So I will be using the CSS throughout the development of the application. So don't be like freaking out about where's all this coming from. It's here in the index CSS, and we're just going to be using it for building our application. All right, so this is our current state. and this is the state that we want to get to. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started here in the app.js, and we're actually going to go ahead and build out a little portion of this application. So let's, oh, keyboard. So we'll grab a main section. Again, keep in mind, a lot of this is coming from the index CSS. And then we'll add a section. And then inside of the section, what we're trying to construct is that little card. So you'll see what that's going to look like. And so here we're going to put just static data for now. It's nice to start out with static data before you make it anything dynamic. And then this section, we'll give it a class name, and that class name is container. And so now if we save, take a look on the right-hand side, you'll see exactly what's happening, right? A little section we got here with the styling applied from the container class. And then we got an H3 telling us how many birthdays. Cool. Next, we are going to import a list. This is our list component. You can see we already have the import up here. It's going to be coded in that file right there. We're going to visit it in a little bit. So we'll pull in the list, nothing happens there. And then we're going to add a button. That's the clear all button, right? So of course we want the clear all message. We'll save that. Nothing comes through because we need to add some styling to it. There it is. And let's add an on-click method. And I don't know why my internet is so slow. And then on here, we're just going to do a very simple console log. I hate when my IntelliSense stops working. There you go, CLG. So for anyone not familiar, I found this super useful when learning how to do React. That's in this extension here, ES7 React extension. It allows you these keyboard shortcuts, and then you can do like CLG, and then that'll be a console log, and then you can do like clicked. All right, so there's our button, and let me see what I messed up. There you go. Get rid of that. And so now if we come here and inspect this, and we'll go to the console, and then if I click it, you'll see our on-click method is working, right? So super simple, nothing amazing yet. Next, that we got this part out of the way, let's go ahead and work on our dynamic parts of this application. So in order to be able to control this information and actually pull in from the data, and let me show you all the data. The data, again, is just a static, right? This is limited amount of time, and we have a lot to cover. So we're just pulling in static data. This is the data that we have. So you can see each item has an ID, very important, name, age, and then an image. It could easily be dynamic, being pulled from an API as well. But in order to read this data, we have to use use state from React. So let's create a destructured array. And then we're going to do use state. And then we're going to pass in the data. So this is the starting state of our application. It's going to be reading the data from that object. And then as all of these methods take, they take what you're going to pass in, and also a method to control the data. So set people controls the data, and people stores the value. Okay. So now in this case, we can make it dynamic, right? So we're pulling in the data. If we want to control this value, for example, and make it dynamic, we can pass in our people.length. And so that's coming from there. You can see that. And then if we save it, watch, it should update. Give it a moment. I don't know why it's so slow. Compiling. It shouldn't be this slow. This is crazy. I don't know. Maybe it's very, oh, there it is. Finally, it updated. 5 birthdays, right? Because we have five people, we've got 5 birthdays. So we can make that part dynamic. And then we need another part to be dynamic, which is passing in people object into the list, because we're going to manipulate this list component that's coming from here. So we're going to save that. Cool. So far, so good. So everything is kind of ready. The only part that's really missing is this part right here. So let's go ahead and code that out. So we're going to come over here to the list. Here's what the list component looks like now. And in here, we are going to first take in our people object that we passed in. And then next, we're going to want to map over that entire object. So we'll get rid of this. And then we'll use the people that we passed in. We're going to use the map method. And then we'll do a anonymous function that will be a person that we're going to use. And then here, we're going to do a destructured object. Oh, sorry, sometimes I type too fast for the IntelliSense. There you go. And so that is going to be our person. And then we're going to destructure it into 4 properties, which is ID, name, age, and image. All right, those are the 4 properties that are coming in from the data here. These, because we want to use them to construct our little profiles for each person, right? So get rid of this. So that's good. Let me save that. Cool. So list component is gone because we removed the text. No problem. Okay, next, let's actually start returning each of the little elements. So we'll return. We can do an article. And then the article is going to take a key. Yeah, by the way, let me show you that. When you're creating properties like this, it's really important to set an ID. So if I show you console here and I refresh this, actually nothing's going to happen yet. But let me show you what would happen if we don't set a key here, but we do something like class name equals to person. It'll start complaining that each child in a list should have a unique key property. And so that's why here we need to set a key like this. And that's why each of those data objects has an ID. And then we use that ID as the key inside of our application. So we don't, oh, sorry about that. We don't want to stop here. Let's continue. So next, here, let me show you guys. So we did the article, which is this little container here. Next, we want to put some stuff inside of that container, and that's going to be an image. And then the source is going to be, you can take a guess, it's going to be that guy right there. So we'll get rid of that and pass that in. So that's, again, the image coming from the data. If we save that, boom, there's all the images coming through. And of course, because we're mapping over it, it captures everything. So it's dependent on the data. If we add or remove data, this will update dynamically. And then let's add an alt attribute, and we can call it name. That's good enough. And then next, let's create the little name and age. And so we'll have a div, and that inside of that div, we'll have a header. The header will have a name. So that'll be the name of the person. So if we save that, take a look how that shows up. Cool. And then we'll do a paragraph. And then here we'll just say the age in years, just like that. So this part dynamic, and then years. So matching up to kind of what we have there. And again, thanks to all the styling. If you're curious, yeah, I know we don't have, not everyone on here is a software developer, so I'll take a moment to explain how all the styling is coming to be is based on these class names. So because they're wrapped in this person class name, if you go to the index CSS and then you search for person, you'll see that this is the styling that's applied to certain parts of that person. So you can see there's an image, the styling that's applied for that, the H4, the paragraph. And so that's how this becomes so beautifully, so easily. Cool. I think we are good here. So if we, oh, and it's funny, I have a misspelling there, no big deal. We'll fix it in a second. So this is all good. It seems like the only thing missing now is our clear all button is not working. So it does do the console logging. Still, let's see. It does do the console logging, right? But it needs to actually clear stuff. And that part is also relatively easy. Let's go back to our app.js. And then in our app.js, we just have one thing that we haven't used, and that is the set people method. And so for that, it's very easy, right? So instead of logging this, we're just going to use the method and we're going to set the people. And what are we going to set it to? We can just set it to an empty array, and then that will basically clear all our values. So let's save that, and let me fix the error here. There you go. And then let's see if it works. Boom, there, it's working. Fantastic. So that is our app. I think I didn't miss anything else. We got the 5 birthdays, we got the clear all, and that's pretty much working just like that. Yeah, one thing I wanted to show was maybe potentially how this data gets pulled in from here, right? So for example, let's say we removed one of these properties and we saved it. So now that has 4 people. So that's that map method, making it really easy to display the information. And again, as I said, it's static, could easily point to some APIs where you're pulling in this data, but a static place is a great place to start, especially for testing. So talking about testing, now that you all saw this application, how would you all test it? What do you think is important to test, and how would you test it? Throw some ideas in the chat for me and we'll talk a little bit about it. Click each person's name. Okay, nice one, Gabriella. And so when you click each person's name, what are you looking for there? Like, what's the outcome of clicking each person's name? What's the expectation? Okay. Let's see, count the entries, clear the entries, count the entries again. Nice one, Seb. Yup. So yeah, totally agree with Seb in terms of, right, so a very common functionality that breaks all over the world is the mapping, counting and mapping functionalities in general, right, can break. You have -1 errors and +1 errors. So you need to ensure that, for example, the starting state is correct when it's right. So if you clear it, it says 0. If you restart, that it counts correctly to 5. So that's very important to do. Testing that the object image name and image match. Oh, that's a cool one too, Gonzalo. So Gonzalo is saying to check that this, I guess up here, is matching up to what's coming in our data from here, right? Because I guess theoretically it's possible that a developer, even such as myself, could not have come up with a good way to map over here and could have introduced a bug. So that's certainly a possibility. Validate there is a number before the word years and age. Nice. Okay. So yeah, and then making sure that, yeah, this kind of goes in line with what Gonzalo said as well, basically just making sure that the data is matching up to the back end, right? So that the front end is correctly representing the data in the back end. So I think a bunch of pretty good ideas. Let me see, there's one more. We shouldn't just check the number displayed in the header. We should also check if it matches the list size that is displayed. Yep. Yeah, so a lot of people are talking about matching up the amount of data we have here to the amount of data that we have here. Cool. You guys threw out a lot of really great ideas. You know what I haven't heard anybody talk about was, what about ensuring that this application actually looks correct, right? Like, for example, what if in our app, what if we changed it to this and we changed, let's say, the button to what I had, clear y'all. I think that's also important as well, right? And also, we're looking at it on desktop, but would it look good on mobile, in a mobile resolution, right? That's also very important. And I would say, in terms of the functionalities here, what do we have? We have pulling in of the data, we have clearing of the text, and that's really all there is in terms of the functionality. And then in terms of the looks, I think that's also an important component as well, because we want to ensure that this looks good on web and mobile. So let me just go back here. What was it, H3? Yeah, that looks good. So I have a way that we can test everything you all have talked about with a single test. It'll be 2 assertions in that test, and that test will validate what everyone has talked about. I think after, let's do it, and then you all can let me know if you think we missed something in our testing scenario. So for what we're gonna do is actually use a visual test to validate a bunch of, yeah, Nina's got it. We're gonna use visual automation. With visual automation, we can check all those things that everybody talked about. So for that, we are gonna use Webdriver Io, Screener, and Sauce. Those are gonna be our technologies. As Diego mentioned, I always wanna make sure I say this, I'm not here to promote any technology. My job as a solutions architect is not to promote technologies, it's to help people construct the best solution to their challenges. So the only reason I'm using these technologies is because it's what I know best and it's what I have available, but this can be applied with any other tooling that has similar functionality. So if you're not familiar with Webdriver Io, let's look at that for a moment. Webdriver Io is a browser and mobile automation framework in Node.js. So maybe some of you are familiar with Cypress. It's similar to Cypress in that it can do functional browser testing, but then it's different from Cypress in that it can do mobile automation. I would say Webdriver Io is more extensible, while Cypress is more controlled, right? To me, Cypress is like an Apple device where you get what you get and you better like it. Otherwise, you move over to Android and you configure it on your own, which to me, that's Webdriver Io. Okay, and so with Webdriver Io, you can then use Screener. Screener is just a visual testing tool, similar to other visual testing tools, Apply tools, Percy, whatever other visual testing tools there are. This will allow us to do the validations that we're talked about, and then all of it is going to run in Sauce Labs. And the reason we use Sauce Labs is because it allows us to easily run cross-browser and cross-platform without needing to configure stuff on our local environment. So let me show you how to make that possible. So in our Webdriver Io config, oh, by the way, so if you want to get started with Webdriver Io, right, of course, you just follow the instructions, you install it. There's a super cool like console that will take you through the setup. It'll let you pick options, and then you set it up to whatever you need. and then you will run the test and make sure that it works. I updated the config because it takes some time to update it to what I want in order to work with visual testing. There are a few things that are important here. You'll see I'm passing in these visual options. These visual options, what's really important here is this API key and this project name. So since, let's change our project name to Continuous Testing Meetup 2022. And if you want your Screener API key, you can come here. Unfortunately, Screener doesn't have a self-service sign up. So if you want to try it out, you have to request a demo and then go from there. But once you get your account, you'll be able to log in. Oh no, I'm incognito. Sorry, I don't know any of my passwords. I have to use LastPass. All right. All right, so if you want to get your API key, you come here to your account, grab your API key, make sure you save it to your environment variables, whether that's a bash or ZSH profile, or on Windows, just save it to your environment variables on Windows. Then we have some sauce options where, again, setting username and access key, those you can also get in your profile. Let's see what's important. Oh, the other important piece here that I should mention is setting up this service called Sauce Connect. It actually allows us to test our application on localhost, right? So this application is on localhost. So Sauce Labs, which runs browsers and VMs in the cloud, needs a way to access our local application. And so that's how you create a secure tunnel, and the secure tunnel allows us to test our app. And then here's the coolest part, probably the most useful, especially for visual testing. You just configure your browsers and operating systems. So here you can see we'll be running on Chrome, Windows 10 and latest in this resolution, which is actually currently the most popular resolution for a desktop. 28% of the world uses it. And so we're going to test it on that. And then, of course, we can afterwards expand it to even mobile sizes as well. And then that's pretty much it. And actually, let me update this timeout too. Cool. That looks good. And so now let's run this. Oh, and actually, let me even show you guys the test too. So the test, how it's going to work is really we can test everything with a few steps. So this is our starting state, right? So this starting state, we can ensure that this data comes in correctly. All of this data comes in correctly. And so that's our starting state. And so we would open it up and capture a snapshot of the state. We can click the clear all button and then ensure that it ends up in this state. And so then with those two checks, we can ensure that all of our functionality is working correctly. If for some reason there would be a bug in any of the logic, that would be visually displayed in the UI. And so the test ends up looking like this using Webdriver Io. We're navigating to the URL. This is saved in the Webdriver Io config, the default. We're calling this birthday reminder app. And then we're capturing a snapshot, and I'm calling it the default state. Next, we're clicking the clear all button. And then I'm taking a snapshot, calling it the clear state. And then we're ending our test, ensuring that there are no error messages afterwards. Now, one other thing I do want to note here that's really nice in making our applications testable is you can see I added a data test ID attribute. And let's see if I actually did it in the code. So currently, this does not have a data test ID attribute, right? So what we want to do is we could, of course, just identify this by the button tag, right? But we all know that that's not the best locator strategy. So it's much better to, whenever we're testing it, to add this to our button. So we'll come in here, we'll add a data test ID. And what was it called? Clear. Okay, cool. That's all I called it, clear. And so we just added data test ID, call it clear. And so now we have a locator. Yeah, exactly as Diego said, we have a locator that we can use for our testing. And it's really nice actually, because then you can even use it in other types of testing. Like if you wanted to do a component test against this button and ensure that the on-click functionality performs what it needs to perform, you can use the data test ID attribute. And that's how you add it. And so boom, there it is, added to our application. Cool. So now with all of that said, a lot of stuff said, let's check our package JSON to run our WebDriver IO tests. We do this command. So let's do npm run WDIO. And so it's going to start running. So here it says execution of one worker started. And I'll show you, I'll take you through the visual workflow. I don't know how many people are familiar with visual testing. It's interesting. I find not so many people are familiar with visual testing yet. And I'm actually finding it as one of my favorite ways to test web applications. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll kind of see the power of it in that you can capture a lot of testing very easily in a single test. And so here, let's see. So here you can see, let me expand this. You can see we have our project, CTM 2022, and it's currently being executed. And if we go to Sauce Labs and log in, we'll see, we should see a test running. So here's a test running. Let's open it up. We'll see our application and let's see if it actually performs some operations here. So it's here. Now it should be capturing a snapshot, then it should clear all and capture another snapshot. Hey Seb, you said it works when I18N is added. I don't know what that is. Can you, what is that? Oh, that's super cool. Okay. So it's easier. It's good for internalization and localization. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, good wonderful point, Seb. Thank you. Yeah, as Seb said, it's great for testing across different locales. Exactly. So there was our test. If you want to watch a recording, there's a recording here. Why was it so slow? I actually enabled performance capture as well on this test, just to get some performance data on our application. So that it's extra slow when it does that to ensure that the page loads, but it's actually a very cool trick I found to do for visual testing as well, is turning on performance to ensure that our application actually fully renders before capturing a snapshot, because in my experience, getting the correct state of the application has been the hardest part of visual testing. So that's gonna done. And then in here, we can see we have one new snapshot in a new state. What this means is that, oh, and it captured the wrong state. Weird. 1 second. I don't know why it captured this state. That's super weird. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I think I was clicked in the wrong place. There we go. So you can see here is our browser and operating system that we ran on this resolution. And here are our two snapshots. And so what we need to determine is, are these snapshots looking like we want them to look, right? Well, we look here, right? We see it's 5 birthdays. We know 5 birthdays is correct. We see this order. We know this order is correct. We see this clear all button spelled correctly. And then in terms of the formatting, everything looks wonderful as well. So we're going to accept it. And now this is going to become our new baseline against which we test in the future. So that was the starting state, right? Not only did it check the styling and everything else, what it also checked was the dynamic pulling in of the data. So you just have to one time manually validate that everything looks correct, and which it does. And then the next one is the empty state. I was calling it the clear state of the application. And you can see that was after clicking the clear all button. We can see the button is still okay. We can see it shows the correct amount of birthdays, and we can see the styling remains the same. So with those two checkpoints, we were basically able to check pretty much all of the main logic of the application, as well as capture the styling of the application. And so that's what those look like. What would happen if we changed it up a bit? Let me show you all. Let's go to app.js, and yeah, let's say, for example, we made that a H1. And let's see if we can change something in the list. In the list, we maybe changed this to, let me see, maybe let's do a paragraph here too. So, okay, so there's kind of a change in our styling, and let's rerun our tests. So let me see here. I see a question from TJ. Is visual snapshot testing like an image comparison on a Jest-like snapshot comparison? Yeah, TJ, visual testing is like image comparison, but it's smarter than that. You'll see in a moment, it's not a pixel to pixel comparison. Visual testing tools nowadays, at least like I would say the paid ones, the reason why they're paid is because they have algorithms in place that make visual differences easier and smarter to identify. While what I find is, unfortunately, the OSS tools, all they do is a pixel to pixel comparison, and then you have to set like a tolerance level, which is not satisfactory in my opinion. And then yeah, Jest snapshots. Just snapshots, I think that's more for like looking at the actual code, right? You can take snapshots of the code and make sure that it's in a good state. The problem I find with just snapshots is that if we're checking like HTML code, right, it's like, so it's going to change so much as we're updating the application. So snapshots are not good enough, in my opinion, for that. However, I would use a just snapshot to check on the data, for example, right? We can take a snapshot of this data and ensure that it's correct. And then afterwards, if it changes, we would see that change and decide if we need to update or not. So I think our test is still running. Yeah, keep throwing out questions while our test is executing. It takes a minute and 30 or whatever. How will the birthdays be displayed if we have too many birthdays? Should we scroll to see? Oh, that's a wonderful question, Rami. So I have not developed the requirements of the application for such a scenario, but that's a wonderful question, is what's going to happen if we have too many birthdays, right? Well, that's a functionality thing of the application. It's something that we have to consider. What is too many birthdays? And then what do we do with those birthdays? I mean, currently, if you keep adding birthdays, the list is just going to keep going down. That's how the application is currently set. Is that satisfactory for our requirements criteria? I don't know. It's something we have to figure out. So here, we've got two snapshots that have changed, right? Which makes sense because we changed a few things. And so now it's going to show us what has actually changed. So we can come here, we see it visually, of course, what's changed, but we can also even see it here in the layout view. It's showing that the layout has changed, right? So it changed to an H1, and then we can see a bunch of style changes for each one of these. So here we have a number of considerations to make. We can decide, do we care about these changes occurring or not? For example, a great example for visual testing is this dynamic birthdays, right? It's 5 birthdays now, but what happens if tomorrow we have 3 birthdays? So we don't want the tool complaining about these birthdays all the time. So what we can actually do is make sure that the content of here gets ignored. And so we can say, for example, ignore this, even though this was a layout change. What a good way to do this is we can actually put the 5 in its own element, and then we can ignore that element either through the UI, or we can do it programmatically through code as well. We can do the same thing with anything here as well. Or we can decide that the current state of the application is now what we want. There's been an update to our application, and it's good for us, it works, and so we can accept it. Here's another snapshot of the second state. So again, you can see here, this was the only thing that changed, right? Saying that this has changed. So we can decide, do we want to ignore like the style? And so now you can see that it's not highlighting a style change. So if we keep changing styles of this, our snapshots are not going to complain about the styling change here. But if it's important for us to know that the style changed because it's breaking our application, we can undo the ignore and keep it. And then, of course, you can apply this to multiple browsers and operating systems. So if you wanted to do like a smaller resolution, maybe like, I forget what an Android resolution is like, but I think it's something like 700 by like 360. You can run it in a different resolution. You can add another object here, and then run it on 2 resolutions at the same time, and then those will appear in there as well. All right, we're getting a bunch of cool questions. Let me see what everyone is saying. Will the solution work for dynamically generated data? Hey, Gonzalo, I'm not sure what you mean by dynamically generated data. If you can elaborate, please. What about if something is in the DOM, but for an issue is not visible in the page? Okay, Aurelian, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, if you want to help me. So you're saying like there can be a bug in the DOM, but it's not visible in the page. If that's the case, visual testing is not the answer, right? So in that case, if there's a bug in the DOM that is not visible, I mean, that's a logical error. So that sounds like it would be like a component test or a unit test to me. And then how is it affecting the application would be my question. This hidden bug, is it somehow affecting the application in a negative way? Yes, Ev. Yep, exactly. We can ignore elements before they show up as a difference. Yeah, you can configure it at multiple levels. So again, I'm only specifically talking about screener here, but this strategy is very similar across other visual testing tools as well. For example, I've used Apply tools in the past. Very similar. You can do very similar stuff there. So let me show you some of these commands and options that are available that we can do. So we can, on initialization of the test, so when we're starting the entire batch of tests, we can actually ignore selectors right there. So we say, for every test in this execution, don't worry about these selectors. We can do it on, so that's how that looks right there. And then here's all the programming languages for everyone. We can also take a snapshot. When we do a snapshot, we can either ignore selectors at the snapshot level, or we can focus only on specific selectors at the snapshot level. And so that's what that looks like. So if we wanted to, you know, just see one specific selector, or a very common situation in visual testing is having a dynamic like header, and in the header, maybe you have a date, or maybe you have like a sale. That's a common thing that you can actually just ignore. And so then you might ignore it at this level and say, just in all my snapshots, don't worry about the header or even the footer potentially. So hopefully that helps. Those are the ways that you can control the different selectors before they get to the UI. Okay, cool. No problem, Gonzalo. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm done. I don't have anything else to show. And we can jump into Q&A if that's what is helpful for everybody. And I can just share my screen when necessary. I can, while we do that, what I can do is try to run this on more browsers and operating systems, just to show you all what that might look like. Let me see, I gotta find a configuration. I gotta find a configuration for, like, let's say iOS, just to copy and paste it in. Hey, Diego, are you gonna like enable Q&A conversations or something?
Yeah, I just did that. I just removed the setting so
Okay.
people can ask.
Yeah, for anyone that wants to ask a question, let me know. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I did have one other thing I was gonna show you guys. I'm so sorry. If you guys want, do you guys wanna see how to deploy this to production? Throw me in. Huh?
Go for it.
Okay, it'll take like 5 minutes. It's super easy. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, it's super easy. Okay, cool, I'll show it. So didn't wanna, be taking too much time. Let me show you all. So one thing to remember here, at least with React, right? Well, pretty much all the applications, when you compile them into production code, they compile into something, right? And so far, what you'll actually see is I have this React DevTools plugin. What it's saying is this is not a development build of React, right? And so what you want to do is you want to come over here and you want to do npm build, npm run build. And so now it's going to compile my application into this build folder, and it's going to put everything that should be released to production. So it'll ignore some stuff and it'll keep some other stuff. And if you want it, for example, to you can do, so you can see now our application is running here on our local network. Let me pull that up here. Let me kill all this, guys. So there it is on my local machine, not local host. So this is now publicly accessible. I believe if you all hit that URL, you should be able to see the application. Just don't hack me, please. Oh, did I put it in the wrong, 1 second. It's loading super slow. I don't know why. Maybe I need to like restart my Mac. I think it's probably been running too long. Everything is super slow. Anyways, so it gets built there. And what we can use to deploy it is actually Netlify. Netlify is super easy to work with and I love it. It's free. Those public URLs, like I showed you all this one, it's deployed to Netlify. That's why you get this funny looking URL, but it's free and they host it. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. Let's not worry about Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing up. Yeah, I should definitely be able to see it myself. Normally you can see it yourself, but I'll ignore this for now. It's not the goal of this. I don't want to distract you guys. So we'll log in, sign up for your free account. Again, I'm not a sponsor for them. I'm just here to enable you guys. And then you can come here, add a new site. So you can do this multiple ways. You can actually just drag and drop your code. So you would just drag and drop your build code, but an easier way is to just do it from GitHub. So you can do import an existing project, hook up GitHub. I'm already authorized. So now it's saying, so we did JS code. That's my repo. Yep, that's the one. Okay, cool. So here you just need to set up a few things. The base directory, right? So if you're confused, it says where it's going to install the dependencies and run your build command, only for mono repos and subdirectories. So our base directory was, just make sure it was called birthday reminder, right? So here's our base directory. Build command, it's exactly like I showed you all in Npm Run Build. And then the publish directory, that's where the code gets built into, and that's the build. And so you just do that. Cool. And then you just deploy site. And then if the demo gods like me, I shall be successful. And then if not, it's in progress. So give it, it takes like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to deploy it. I'll let you all know when that happens. But at the end, this is what it looks like. You get a dynamic URL and you get your application. This is also deployed just from a different repo. And then whenever you update your code, of course, you just redeploy with Netlify and then you get the updates. So that's the nice part. Let that go for now. Okay, yeah, Diego's used it too. Yeah, Netlify is nice. Okay, cool. While that deploys, I can open it up to Q&A now. I'm so sorry for the previous confusion.
Thank you for the great presentation. If anyone cannot unmute themselves, just let us know, or if you don't want to, just write the question in the chat. I have a small question. I assume you have to initially validate the first time you take a screenshot with any device and resolution combination. Is there like a sensible limit of how many resolutions you should go through until it's like a diminishing returns?
That's a wonderful question, Seb. Yeah, I would say for like, it's a business decision first and foremost, right? So it really depends on your application. I've definitely seen teams and people take it way too far. Like, you don't need to check it on every browser and the resolution, right? I mean, you can start at like the most basic level, which is, we all know what are the most popular browsers. It's Chrome and Safari. So at least check it on those in the most popular resolutions on desktop, right? And then of course you always have to do mobile as well. We're a mobile first world now. So both of those on desktop and both of those on mobile. So you at least have 4. And then from there, you have to figure out what else is important for your business. Like one of my coworkers, Marcus Merrill, he worked at a company where they knew like down to the dollar which browser and version was generating them how much money. So they could easily make a decision what was important and not, you know. For like this application, it's harder. I personally would just, if it was going to go to production, I would probably do those 4 and then keep it there. And then I would see if issues start coming along the way. And then if more issues start coming along the way in certain other combinations, I would start adding them to protect me from the future. So side note, our build is complete. It looks, everything was good. Build script success. Let's preview our new site. And it deployed, of course, it deployed our starter code. So I'm sorry about that. And I'm so silly. I'm gonna, afterwards, I'm gonna create a brand new branch for you guys. I'm so sorry, I meant to do that. Let me do that right now. Let's call this continuous testing meetup 2022. There you go. There's your guys' branch. This is where you can get the finished code. And I'm so sorry, I of course pushed up the starter code, but you get it, right? I mean, it wouldn't have been any different. It's just the same, just different code. This is just starter. Yeah, any other questions? Your guys' branch is now here, there. Let me share it with you all. So that should be all the latest stuff. Finished project. And you guys should star and fork this repo while you're there. Yeah, Rami, sure there. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, Rami. And yeah, I shared the code. It's there for you. The starter code, okay, the starter code is here in birthday reminder. And then the finished code was at that branch that I created for you all. And for anyone new to some React development, most of this was actually possible thanks to Create React App. They make pretty much all the setup extremely easy, and then you just kind of have to fill in the data. So if you new check out Create React App, you just run it, and then it'll give you like boilerplate application that starts already in a working state. You just have to now fill in the details.
Gonzalo is raising the hand. You can
just sorry, I was going to unmute. Yeah. So my question was related to how is the branch support for the solution? Because one of the things that I noticed is that you have to approve each one of them. So if I can define, for example, I don't know, I'm using something like A/B testing or releases or something in which one application is different in one branch than another. Can I set up something like that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting, very good question, Gonzalo. There is a branch support. Again, I'm not here to be selling tools, but I think pretty much all of them have branch support. I actually have never seen branching used well. It sounds like you're talking about A/B testing and different versions of the application. It sounds like that might be the use case for branching, but up until now, I haven't seen a need for branching. I just seen people naming their tests in a special way to determine like, is this what version 1 or version 2 and so on, and then they use the baselines from there. But yeah, if you wanted to, let me show you visual end-to-end testing. There's also visual component testing for anyone that is more familiar with the development process. You can actually just check individual components. Let me check here, branch. Yeah, see, so you can create branches and the base branch. The base branch you would set to say kind of, hey, this is where my baseline lives, right? Maybe you do it like the main branch is my base branch, and then whenever you're running tests, you can set them to a new branch and then use that as the version.
And Nikolay, I don't think you're sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I stopped. Thank you. Let me reshare. All right, there you go. So I went to the documentation here. There is the branch and base branch options that would fit your use case. Give them a shot.
I have another question about the, let's say, snapshotting process, because I've heard from other colleagues that they have the issue that when they have used DOM snapshotting, that when the build breaks, they don't really check it and they just create a new snapshot and then it works again. Have you had better experience with the visual snapshot, since you don't have to go through a ton of text to find the difference? You can just look at a picture. Is that more friendly or more accessible, let's say?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with DOM snapshots, is that they change so quickly. And I would prefer visual snapshots instead, because you can kind of control more what you care and don't care about. And so then you can either control it through code, or you can control it through the UI and just ignore. You can ignore what you want. Sometimes it's, you only want to capture a part of an application, right? Maybe you want to ignore everything else that's going on here and you want to only capture this component. You can just capture a snapshot of that component. So it's more, it gives you more control versus, yeah, as you said, one little piece of text in the DOM snapshot and now you have a failure.
I do have a question. I want to maybe hear your opinion about this concept of, visual testing is really good, but sometimes make people lazy, because then they just use the images and they make the comparisons and then it just works. So you don't need to write tons of assertions, and that's really good. But sometimes when you want to have fast feedback and you have visual tests, this takes longer. So what's your opinion between like finding a balance between automated tests and visual tests, that those two things don't take hours to give you feedback?
That's an awesome point, Diego. Of course you would bring it up. Before I answer, I see people leaving. I would really appreciate you all to just leave me some feedback before you go. I always love to take feedback on my presentation, and then I use that to improve for my next presentation. I dropped a Google form. It's totally anonymous. Just please share before you go. So now with Diego's question, yeah, I think it's like, that's like one of the most challenging things, in my opinion, is finding the right balance of the types of tests to use to cover the different risks, right? It's like, there's no like definitive answer that you can say, like before, for example, we talk about the testing pyramid. We talk about lots of unit tests, then less integration tests, and then at the very top, very few UI tests, right? Nowadays, for example, I can say, at least from my experience with coding React, I rarely ever write unit tests, because in the React world or these standard JavaScript libraries, unit testing is typically too low level. And so then you move up to the component test layer, where you can actually be checking the interaction of the DOM with the JavaScript and seeing how those work together. So that's a better fit. But then I found visual testing to meet like a lot of functional testing needs. So for example, in this case, where I want to ensure some key functionality working of the application, I wanted to use visual testing, because like, what are my other alternatives in this case, right? So let's think. I mean, we can, for example, checking the state of the data, right? We can do a just snapshot, okay, and ensure that the data in the file is correct. Okay, next time that data changes, the snapshot updates. Is that what we want to keep updating? I don't know. Okay, but so then how about a button? Testing the button, what are you going to do? You can write a component test for testing the button to ensure that when you click it, it does a clear all, okay? But then you're still not taking into consideration, how about the text at the top? Let me be showing something so we can be talking about it. I think it'll be better. Am I still sharing my screen?
Nope.
No. So if we're talking about our app, right, like we can write a component test just for the click, the on click, but then it disregards all of this other stuff, right? So then now you need to write a component test to check that the birthdays get updated correctly. And then you probably need to write a component test that this gets updated correctly. So everywhere you're inserting dynamic JavaScript logic, you kind of have to write a component test. So those are like now at least 3 component tests, and then you're still ignoring the entire rendering of the application. So I don't know, it's hard. It's like, how much effort? I don't know. I think I would use visual testing for page-to-page navigations and ensuring that the pages are rendering correctly. And then some, like, if we started doing like hitting APIs here and checking for data from the backend, then I'd probably take it down a layer and do an API test. But for me personally, Diego, I don't want my build and test cycle to be longer than 10 minutes. I don't have the patience for it. So for me, that's my limit, where I say, if it's taking longer than 10 minutes, I want to optimize my testing. So I hope that answer is satisfactory. I know it's not like anything definitive, but at least that's how I try to think about it, is like, what is the value that I want to get from the test? How much effort do I want to put into a test and maintain it? And then how fast do I want my feedback? And Diego's totally right. These visual tests are pretty slow. And actually, that's one of the disadvantages of Screener that I don't like. For example, with Cypress, you don't have the code traveling over the internet. And so the code runs in maximum like a few seconds. And so if I knew a visual testing tool, I'm actually learning a visual testing tool with that, and then that gave me feedback in a few seconds versus a few minutes, now we've solved a long feedback challenge as well. So yeah, sorry for that long answer.
No, I really like it, because I think the key, one of the key things that you said were component testing in React or similar applications, and I think that's the way to go. A simple example is that in the Selenium project, we have the Selenium grid, and the user interface for it, it's a React application. So we were thinking about writing, I don't know, 15 Selenium WebDriver tests, and then after like checking everything, I mean, we just decided to write maybe 25 component tests and only 2 WebDriver Selenium tests. So if you put visual testing to those 2 WebDriver tests, then you will get less than 10 minutes in your build. So I think just wanted to hear your opinion on that, and I think well, I agree with your opinion. So I think that's a good approach. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me feedback too. That makes sense. It sounds like that's probably what I would have done as well if it was a React project. That sounds about a right balance for me in terms of getting fast feedback.
I have a quick recommendation. If you enjoyed Nikolay's talk and you want more of him, he was a guest already about a year and a half ago. So I have linked the talk from back then in the chat, and you can check it out. It is also JavaScript related, but it was a completely different topic. The only connecting dots is it was also very practical, and it was a great session, and I can highly recommend it. It was a great talk back then as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Seb. That talk would be cool for me to see. It was when I was just starting out in my JavaScript learning journey. It was like I was maybe like a month or 2 into it. So
awesome, check it out.
Yeah, it's like you'll laugh at me as I stumble through stuff there.
No, I remember it very fondly. I was thoroughly impressed, if I remember correctly.
I faked it until I made it.
I mean, that always works, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I think we're getting to a point where we can start wrapping it up. I would recommend that you all folks have a look at Nikolay's Twitter, reach out to him in LinkedIn. Website is there, so please have a look. And as someone recommended in the chat, if you find Nikolay's content valuable, well, there is the link to buy Nikolay a coffee. So why not? Have a look at that. And yeah, before moving forward, I don't know if you have any other things that you want to share, Nikolay, but I just wanted to thank you again for being here and for being so patient and explaining things in such a swift way. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, Diego. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for having me. And thank you all for giving me feedback on my presentation. I already see it coming through. What I was going to say is, if you liked my presentation, I do have a YouTube channel where I post this kind of stuff for free all the time. So you can just go there and follow me. I'm going to drop it into the chat. I'm trying to like do a bunch of tutorials around these kinds of topics. So, you know, you'll get notified whenever I publish them.
Yeah, that's true. Like, just sharing content is a good thing that Nikolay is doing often. All right. Yeah, as we have said a few times, just have a look at our website, continuoustestingmeetup.com, and Nikolay's talk will be there in a few days, and also the previous one that happened. What was that, like 1 year ago, maybe? Yeah, so have a look, check Nikolay's content, have a look at what he's up to in his Twitter account and so on. And if you want to check any other talks around, have a look at the website. All the content is there, and all the videos are there. And I think that's pretty much from us today. I just want to thank you, everyone, for being here. And well, I think there is someone with someone raising the hand. So do you want to mute yourself and comment or ask a question?
Yeah, I just this is my first time attending this program, and I just wanted to let everyone know that 4 years ago I purchased Nicholas one of his automation class when I also started as being the first automation engineer in my company, and I just wanted everyone to know that his course really helped me, and I'm now like a senior automation engineer at my work and managing an entire team. So just wanted to say thank you, Nicholas.
Nana, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for letting me know. That's exactly why I'm motivated to keep putting out content into the world, is to hear amazing stories like that. And congratulations on your role.
Cool. That's really nice to hear. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the many, maybe thousands of stories that people can share about Nikolay. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Aurélien, Serene, Oksana, Nikolay especially. Thank you for being here. And we haven't published the next event, but we will publish it as soon as we can. Have a look at our meetup and Twitter account and so on. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Bye, everyone.